Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to part 2 to my Godot beginner series. So we're going to jump right in and get working again. Today we're going to be creating our very first script inside of the Godot engine. If you didn't see the first video, I'm going to put a link right here. You can go check that out. You'll want to make sure you watch that because if you don't, you might be a little lost. So let's get started. I'm going to click here on Die Bricks Video because this is the project that we made. And here is where we were. If you remember last time when we left off, we had the ball bouncing around in the room, bouncing off the paddle. We had all our collisions set up, but there's no way to control the paddle. So today we're going to be doing that. So click on the paddle node right here, and up in kind of the right hand area of the scene tree, there are a few icons here. On the far right, this is the new script icon. We're going to click on that and it's going to create a new script. Now because I've scaled my text a little bit, I've got some funny stuff going on down here, but yours should look fine. So I'm going to name this paddle.gd. Well, actually, you know what? Let's click on this little dot thing and let's create a new folder and we'll name it scripts. Okay. And then inside of here we can name it paddle.gd, just like I did, and save. And I have to tab down to get to create. And you can click the create button and it should get you here. This is a basic script inside of Godot, and Godot, for its scripting language, it uses what's called GD script, which is very similar to Python. So if you've ever used Python, it's going to look really familiar to you. It's a syntax, I guess what's the best way to say this? It's a tab-based syntax. That might not be the right way to say that, but you can see here it doesn't use brackets like this. You don't use brackets. What you do is you just tab everything over, and I kind of like that, especially for beginners, because brackets can get super confusing for beginners. So encouraging them to tab everything or forcing them to tab everything, I think is a really good thing for beginner programmers, in my opinion. So what does this do? Well, these right here are comments. So inside of GD script, you can do a number sign and then type something, and that will be a comment. This right here, this is a function, and it's the ready function. This function gets called when the node is ready inside of the room. If you're coming from Game Maker, which not all of you are, but some of you might be, this could be similar to a create event. So it runs right when the node is ready inside of the scene. So we're going to do only one thing. We're going to get rid of these comments first. We don't need all those comments. Oh, up here, let me explain this. Extends. This just means inherits from. So this node, or this script, inherits from kinematic body 2D. Why does it inherit from kinematic body 2D? Well, that's because that's the node we're using. The paddle node is a kinematic body 2D. So we inherit those, everything that goes with that. Let's just start inside of our ready. Now, inside of Godot, you need to tell the node to run process, which is a function that runs every single frame of the game. And since we're using physics, we need to use what's called the fixed process, which is every single physics update for the game. So inside of our ready here, make sure that you're tabbed over. You should see a little dash thing like that if you're tabbed over. And we're going to do set fixed process, and we're going to set it to true. This tells this node that it should be running the fixed process function. Now we're going to actually create that function. Function underscore fixed process, and you can see it gets an argument which is delta time. That's how many, I think, milliseconds have passed since the last fixed process. So you can make sure that your game, no matter how fast the computer runs it, the game always runs at the same speed. But we don't need to worry too much about that because of the way that we're going to be programming this. So we just want to move the paddle so that it follows the mouse. So there is a script or a function inside of kinematic body 2D that we can use that's called set position. And you can see we get a bunch of options here, but we want set position. Now set position takes what is called a vector. Now, especially the people who are coming from GameMaker, the only reason I keep mentioning this is because my channel has generally GameMaker tutorial videos. So especially people coming from GameMaker, vectors might be new to you. But a vector is just, it's a variable that contains two values. And in this case, it's containing an X position and a Y position. So if we want to set the position, we have to pass in a vector. But we can create a new vector. So for example, if we do set position vector 2, and you can see it takes an X and a Y, we're going to pass in 100 and 100 for this vector. Okay. Now what happens when we run the game? Well, nothing. So let me double check this. Okay, so sometimes, I just realized what happened. Sometimes the very first time you create a script and attach it to a node, it doesn't actually attach. And I think this might be a glitch in the engine. It's not really that big of a deal because it's only the first time, it works every other time. And you can attach it manually. Just click on the node here, scroll down to where it says script, click on the paddle text there and do load scripts and choose paddle.gd, open, and run the game again. Okay, there you go. You can see that it set the position of the paddle to position 100, 100. We passed in that vector, and the vector had an X value and a Y value. So that's looking pretty good. Come back into the script. You can either click on script up here or click on the little icon right here. And now we want to make it so that it follows the mouse, now that we know set position is working. Now we need to get the current Y position because we want the Y position of the paddle to stay the same, which is how high it is inside of the scene. So we're going to create a new variable inside of here. We're going to call it var Y equals, and there's another function inside of the kinematic body 2D, which actually I think these functions are inherited from node 2D, but there's another function called get position. Now get position returns or spits back out a vector. So this right here is going to have two values. If we want to get access to only one of the values, then we need to use the dot operator. So we can use dot Y. So get position dot Y. That will give us the Y position for our paddle. Now that we have the Y position for our paddle, we can pass that into our vector 2 right here. So we can say Y right there. Now let's create another variable, and this one is going to get the X position of the mouse. So we're going to say var mouse X equals. Now we need to get the mouse's X position relative to the view in the room, to the viewport. You could use global mouse position, but that would get the mouse position on the screen. And we want it to be relative to the view in the room. So we're going to say, for this, we need to do get viewport right there, dot get mouse position. So this function right here gets the viewport, And once we have the viewport has a function called getMousePosition. And so we can get the mouse's position relative to the viewport. But we also only want getMousePosition also returns a vector. So that returns an x and a y value. But we only want the x value. So we're going to use dot x. Now we can pass in mouse x into our vector 2 here, mouse underscore x. And when we set the position, it will set the position relative to the mouse's x position and our current y position. So let's run the game and make sure this works. You can see I can move the paddle around now, and we can keep it. We can keep the ball in the room, but we don't have any control over where the ball actually goes, which makes it really boring to do that. So we're going to want to add that control. But very first, let's add in the bricks. Okay, let's add in the bricks. Let's go to our world. And I'm going to add a new node that we can use as kind of just a folder, basically, to hold all of the bricks. So I'm going to do new node here, and I'm just going to use a node 2D, and I'm going to name this bricks. Now inside of that node, so click on bricks, I'm going to create another node, and this one is going to be a static body 2D, which is, remember, if you remember the three kinds of bodies, the static body is going to be the one that doesn't generally move. And so it's great for bricks because they're just going to stay there in the same spot. And we're going to name this one brick. Now inside of this brick right here, I'm going to add a sprite node. Sprite, and you'll probably remember a lot of this from the last one. And I'm going to select the sprite here, load, textures, brick, open. And I'm going to scale the sprite, make sure you've got sprite selected, and I'm going to scale it. Now, you don't actually have to scale stuff inside of the game. You could set the viewport to automatically scale everything. But I actually want to scale it because I want to have the extra pixels for movement. So that's an option that you have. You can do it either way based on the kind of game you're making. If you want to have extra pixels for movement and stuff, then scaling it might be an option. So now that we've got this brick sprite here, we need to add, I'm gonna lock that and click on the brick. I'm going to add a collision to it. So do collision shape 2D. And we're going to use a new rectangle shape. And for the extents, we're going to, let's see, for the X, let's do 36. Oh, that's too much. 32. Still too, well, that might be right, but our brick is all fuzzy. So let's set it so that whenever we import a sprite, it's kind of pointless now because I think we've imported all the sprites we need to. But just for future reference, so you know, if you go to Scene, Project Settings, and then Image Loader, you can uncheck the filter and uncheck Gen Bitmaps, and that will automatically make sure that you don't generate those when you load in a sprite. So let's click on the sprite here and go into the texture and turn off maps and the filter so we get a nice clean edge on our sprite there. Come back to the collision shape and let's do this as 30 and the Y as 16. No, that's a little too much. 14. There we go. Now I'm going to make that I'm going to lock that shape as well so we don't grab that when we move our brick. And I'm going to set the brick. And I actually want to, now that we've got the brick created, I actually want to edit the snap, configure snap, and set this to the Y as 16. Yeah, there we go. That's just the right size. And you know what? To make the collisions make more sense, let's leave it for now, actually. We might change that later, but okay, move the brick. You can put it in the center of the room here. Now what you can do is you can duplicate this brick right here inside of bricks. And you can see there's a little duplicate icon right here, but you can also just hit Control D. So I'm going to do, I don't know, maybe a few bricks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 9, that makes 10 bricks total because this brick doesn't have a name or it doesn't have a number attached to it. So we can now move these inside of the room. Just grab each one, put them in any order you like. There we go. So that's looking pretty good for where we have the bricks going. Now we should be able to run the game again. And the ball will bounce off those bricks if it ever hits them. I think it'll hit it on the next one. Yeah, there we go. Now the ball doesn't actually ever, it doesn't destroy the bricks. So we're going to need to deal with that and create that collision so that when it hits the bricks, it actually destroys them. So let's figure out how to do that. So this little brick node right there, just minimize it so that we don't have to see all the bricks right now. And you can save your project. Now come into the ball. We're going to attach a script. So click on the ball and click on the script thing icon. I'm going to click the double dots to make sure we're inside of scripts. I'm going to name this ball.gd and save and create it. And you can see it should extend rigid body 2D. And get rid of these comments. Now we want the ball to run a fixed process function as well. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. So set fixed process true. And then we're going to do func fixed process. And we're ready to detect collisions inside of our fixed process. Now the ball has a really nice function inside of it that can get all of the different bodies that it's colliding with. So we can do var bodies equals get colliding bodies. And this function right here will return an array that contains all of the bodies that it's colliding with. So that's pretty cool. We can just get them all right there. But this actually doesn't work unless you set up the rigid body 2D so that it detects bodies or it detects collisions. So click on, first you can save this real quick, but click on the ball node and come over here to the right. So the property that you need to change is contact monitoring. You need to check contact monitoring so that this will monitor contacts. Not only do you need to check that, but you also need to check how many contacts are reported. Right here, contacts reported. We want to report at least one contact. So set that to 1. So even though contact monitoring was on, we weren't reporting any contacts because it was still set to 0 contacts reported. So you need to make sure that we're reporting at least 1. And this right here got me for a little while when I was setting up this tutorial, because I didn't see the contacts reported. I only checked contact monitoring and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't actually reporting any contacts. So now that we've done that, we can go back into the script, and this right here should actually return a list of basically just one item because we're only reporting one contact. But it'll report one item and we can do something with that. So now that we've done that, we can check to see if it is a brick. Now all these bricks have different, now one way to check to see what you're colliding with is to check it by its name, right? But all of these bricks have slightly different names. And so there's a really useful trick that you can do, which is to add them to a group. So if we select these bricks, I think we can do it to all of them at once. I hope so. And then click this little, there's two little circles right there. Click on that. This will add it to a group. We want to name this group bricks. Add. Close. And now if we click on any one of these bricks, you should see that it is part of the bricks group. And I don't see it there. So we might have to do it one by one. Well, it would have been smart to do that before copying all of these, but I'm going to just do it real fast. I've added almost all of them to the bricks group now. This just helps us so that we can, when we detect a collision, we can check to see if the collision object is part of this group. If it is, then we can destroy it, which is what we want to do. Okay? Now each of those bricks should be set to the group. Let's go back into the ball script. And we're going to say for body in bodies. Now this right here loops through all of the bodies that we're colliding with and basically creates a variable called body for each one. So really convenient. It's much easier than trying to loop through all of these ourselves. So that's really nice. Now we can just access body inside of here. So we can say if body.is in group bricks, then what do we want to do? We want to destroy it. So the way that you do that is a function called queue_free. So we're going to say body.queue_free. Now we should be able to save our nice little ball script here and run it, and hopefully this works. So let's see here. Bounces off there. Should hit the brick this time. Boom. Destroys the brick. So great job. You've already got bricks getting destroyed. Now we still can't control the ball. I'm going to do that in part 3 because I don't want these videos to be too long. But you've got a really good start. You should be proud of what you have so far. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments. I'm going to be watching the comments for the first few days, and hopefully other people doing this video will also watch the comments and kind of help out. We'll try and do our best to help out that way. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Be sure and like and favorite it and share it on Twitter if you did. If you're just dying because you feel picked on because I've done 2 Godot videos since my last Game Maker video, then don't worry. Here pretty soon I'm going to be uploading the next part to the RPG Game Maker series that I'm doing, so stay tuned for that. Don't get too mad that I'm doing Godot as well. So thank you guys for your support, and I will talk to you guys later.